Well, good morning, folks. This is going to be a fantastic Leading Your Best Life because I'm going to do a part two interview with James Bryan. He's on the Sunshine Coast. He says it's fantastic. And this time in part two, we're going to see him in person to prove he's not just a voice and photos. He's a real person. James, welcome back to part two of our Leading Your Best Life interview.
Thank you, Leigh. Very happy to be here.
Fantastic. You're looking healthy, well. Just tell me, before we even start, what exercise have you done this morning?
So today I did a yoga practice. So I do a little bit every day of yoga, but I also now make sure I incorporate resistance training, cardio, and some strength stuff as well.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to ask you all about that and why shortly. But if people listen to part one of the interview, they know that you're, that US accent, born in a little place called Los Angeles, you said, and
Yes.
then New Zealand, all over the place, and then of course partnering with Nicki for all these years. How many years have you been married now?
I think it's 36. I'd have to, 36. And remember, did 28 years with her first husband.
Yes.
Now, when we were married for 29, I rolled over in bed in the morning and said, yes, I crushed that other guy.
Right, and as we said in that first interview, we know that your birthday is early September. What is it, the 7th, 8th? Not what is it? What date?
September, yep, very good day.
That Virgo, as you said, I'll say attention to detail. You said not liking chaos. Whichever of those motivations are that motivates that. I've got so many good friends who are Virgos, including my first wife. So I know, having lived with a Virgo for 35 to 40 years, it's an interesting lifestyle because there's the eye for detail is quite incredible, particularly compared to my lack of eye for detail.
Well, if your logo is leading your best life, I would think that you would stumble across or come across a lot of people who are organized because
Yes.
you lead your best life when you're disorganized. It just going to happen. And there's probably going to be quite a few Virgos falling into that category because they're naturally inclined to organization.
Mate, isn't it beautiful? I mean, you're reminding me, one of my good friends, in fact, mentor, I met way back in about 1991, 92, a guy called Bryan. He started Cash Converters, and people have all sorts of views on Cash Converters, but he, being a Virgo, he's walked into a pawnbroker store and he just couldn't handle the degree of disorganization for the guys. He's gone, mate, if you had better lighting, had better signage, if you had the things organized, you can imagine the traditional pawnbroker store is just just stuff everywhere, and Bryan's brain's just freaking like, my God, if he just did 1/10 of what I think should be done, this could be way better as a business. He just hated that disorder, and he literally said to the guy, mate, let's go in partnership. I'll bring you my retail order brain, and you will make more money. And the guy said, nick off, mate, I'm not interested. So he literally went off and set up Cash Converters with a Virgo brain. And of course, it ended up floating on the London Stock Exchange. And they had hundreds of stores coming back to the E-Myth. And he would tell me, if he's in a restaurant and the knives and forks on the other side of the table don't line up with the knives and forks on his side of the table, he breaks into a cold sweat. It's just like, that's the degree of order he likes, and I make a joke about his hair being so perfect. His hair is always, everything's perfect, So.
Isn't that the same story behind the guy, Jim's lawn mowing? He did, I think he did lawn mowing after school to put himself through university. Because his mind tends towards organization, he just naturally started working out how to reduce the number of how much time he spent doing the lawn, and then what was the most efficient number of cuts on a particular lawn. And he's a multimillionaire today just from having that inquisitive mindset of how to make something better.
Yes. Look, as we move into this interview, that's what I said before we recorded. I really do want to delve down into that link between mind, business, and the power of yoga and meditation, and probably, physical health as well. And I mentioned to you, and we mentioned in the last meeting, this incredible book, the E-Myth book of Michael Gerber, and systematization, and again how he uses McDonald's as the example of order and systems, and that was highlighted in that movie with Ray Kroc. I've forgotten the guy's name was in it.
Well, Michael Eden.
Yes,
Michael Eden is it?
Michael Seaton. Was it Michael Seaton? Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton. Yes.
He played Ray Kroc, didn't he? Yeah, I saw that. It's pretty good. And I think most people will agree that McDonald's isn't the top quality hamburger that you can buy, but because they implemented the efficient business systems, they made it the most profitable.
Absolutely. Look, and I can tell you, I did work for McDonald's, well over 10 years ago now, and it was around the time that Super Size Me movie was out, and again, systems wise, when they'd have small, medium, and large, whether it be small, medium, and large hamburgers or small, medium, and large milkshakes, all of a sudden medium became small and large became medium, and so they just kept upsizing people. But as they say, just something as simple as that simple script of teaching a 15-year-old kid to go, "Would you like fries with that?" versus anything else. Knowing full well that if you say, "Would you like fries with that?" the mind has to imagine having the fries to then say, "No, I don't want the fries." And the same being, "Would you like an apple pie with cream?" to finish off. It's like it's like, don't think of a pink elephant. They've used mind science versus just letting the kids make up like anything else. It's way too vague a question. So systematizing, and I think Michael Gerber talks about even systematizing how we want you to clean the windows and how we want you to clean the table, because we've worked out the most efficient way rather than just people saying, "Well, I'll just use common sense. I'll just do it my way." So let's
want to replicate and create a franchise, multiple outlets.
Yes.
Have a systems that's impossible.
Correct. So let's talk about that, because we touched on it in the first program, and I'll go to your website to do that, because as I say, today I want to particularly delve down into the business relationship of how you and Nicki have done what you've done here. And if I go to, where is it, Nof Yoga Teachers, you touched on it last time. You created the IP, and let's just talk about this as a contrast. The average yoga teacher who has a great heart and wants to change the world and help people be healthy, but with little or no business background and structure, versus what you guys have done in terms of packaging the IP. And Nicki mentioned it in her interview as well, when she said, I think she had people staying at her house for $50 a week or something, and her father said to her, "You'll never make any money out of yoga." Yes. Because you just want to give. So let's talk about whether it be Jane Beerling or Penny Burke or any of those, before and after being involved with Nof Yoga, or even just the generic yoga teachers, some of the mistakes you've seen them making over the years as to how they don't optimize both impact in the community and return on investment, or at least making a good living out of yoga. Would you like to make a comment about that?
Yeah, well, the thing that we see most, especially with established yoga teachers, they do an initial teacher training course in any particular style. That doesn't.
They could have gone to Bali or India or Australia or anywhere. Yeah.
They've got their initial, say, 200 hours of training, might even done more on top of that. But then what quickly happens is that for their ongoing training, they'll do random workshops. So, they'll do a weekend workshop in relaxation yoga, and then they'll do another one in Ayurveda, and then 6 weeks later they'll do something else. And very quickly we find that they get confused, and so they end up practicing haphazardly. They'll just wake up in the morning and decide what they feel like to decide what they're going to do, so they don't actually have a plan. And then that bleeds over into the class. Then they start teaching what is currently holding their interest, rather than sticking to a syllabus or a program. Imagine if somebody signs up for a 4-year university degree and all the professors just teach whatever they feel like on the day, rather than having a system to carry them through the 4 years, so they end up with proper degree in the education that goes with that. So Nicki calls that Mickey Mouse yoga or random yoga, and it's not it's not really, you're not insulting it, because the yoga itself can be good, but because they don't have a system and they're not conveying it to the students in a layered way that the students can build on that, they end up just running their students in circles. And then we find people, go to yoga for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and they're still at the beginner's level. And contrast that to martial arts, where they have systems, the colored belts. It's been doing martial arts for 15 years. If they're still at the white belt level, you could say that there's something wrong with that teacher's presentation.
So how did you go about structuring? I know you had discovery level, and you told me, or Nicki had said, you kind of worked through all the poses and said, well, which are the easier poses, and then you set up a hierarchy or a black belt level.
Interesting story, because we studied Iyengar yoga first. So Iyengar yoga is named after a man called BKS Iyengar, and that's Indian names, but we say it translates to beat, kick, and shout. He likes to yell at people and slap them. I mean, he's passed away now, but he was a pretty intense teacher, to say the least. But his main focus was on the anatomical aspect of the yoga poses. So he really brought in the sort of, I won't say medicalized, but the anatomical aspect of the yoga poses, how to align the body structurally. And that's simply bones and muscles, so that the things work better. It's like tuning a musical instrument. And he was a genius at that, really, really terrific. And then we did that for a long time, a couple of decades. And then we went and studied with another yoga teacher called Pattabhi Jois. Now, he is the man behind the Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga. And the Ashtanga has, it's known for its intensity. It's probably the most gymnastics of all the Hatha Yoga styles, but they actually do have these levels. Within each level, it's very haphazard, but they have what's called primary series, secondary series, and third series. And so there is progression there, but they didn't have the concept of anatomical alignment. And so because those students were working intensely, but without understanding how to tune their bodies, there was a really high level of injuries. Nicki and I were in Mysore, India, studying with Pattabhi Jois. Nicki used to actually hold a medical clinic in the afternoons at a local hotel outdoor by the pool. And all these yogis, would come to get her expertise on how to fix their injuries.
Wow.
And really basic stuff. I mean, when you're standing in a yoga pose, say what's called mountain pose, just a very basic first standing, just standing with your feet together, your arms along your side, and you're basic hugging the muscles onto the bones. If you think about an individual leg, the thigh muscle, the kneecap, the shin, and the foot are all in one straight line because the person is standing straight. Okay. Now, when we do standing poses and we jump out to the side and we turn the body either to the right or left, that back leg gets twisted. And unless you know that you need to keep the alignment through that leg, and again, thigh muscle, kneecap, shin, and foot, if you need to maintain that same alignment, and if you turn off the body, twist through that leg, but have your foot anchored, you put tremendous torsion through your knee joint. And the stronger the pose is, the more pressure is put through that joint. And everyone eventually was having knee injuries. And so we would show how, just show the basic alignment, then how to maintain that when you're doing the various yoga poses. And there was a massive revelation for people. But what we came up against was this mindset of the guru told me, so that's how I'm going to do it. Even though it resulted in injuries, and sometimes the person had to stop doing yoga because they were so injured. Now, because we studied with Iyengar first, and we were imprinted with this concept of anatomical alignment, took that with us when we went and studied the Ashtanga. And the Ashtanga was great because it brought in some other concepts that the Iyengar yoga didn't teach. And those concepts were, one of them were what's called the bandhas, B-A-N-D-H-A. So bandhas are basically internal contractions of lifting the body from the inside. And it's a little bit like, remember early day planes? You know, they like the Wright brothers. They were basically kites. So they had, a very light wooden frame with wire stretched out to hold the thing together, and then basically thick paper and glue over the top of that. And so the human body is a bit like that. You've got to tighten everything up to make sure it takes flight. If everything is loose and floppy, it's not going anywhere. So bandhas are the internal. I mean, I can show you my arm here.
Yeah.
See my right arm. So at the moment, that arm's just hanging out to the side. It's loose. It's unactivated. Now I'm going to hug those muscles onto the bone. So that's relaxed. You can see my tricep.
The triceps are much looser, yeah.
Now I'm going to squeeze the muscles on my arm onto the bone. So I'm going to hug myself with that activation now. Can you do that? Now,
yeah, it goes tension.
Yeah, so I put tension through that arm. Now that's made my arm stable, made it much lighter, giving me more control. Now, if I do a handstand and I have my arm relaxed, it's going to turn into a pose called a face plant. So, but by doing this activation here, so you see I'm rolling the bicep back. You can see my forearm, I'm hugging those muscles onto the bone. So now handstand is just that activation here where I pull my hand back like this. But this whole activation in the arm has to take place. So the upper arm is rolling out, the lower arm is rolling in, and that's putting a light twist in that joint to stabilize everything. In martial arts, that's called tendon twisting. So they do that in like the Tai Chi. They do these tendon twisting techniques. Now we do that in yoga to stabilize the body, and the sensation is almost of lifting yourself up from the inside. Another one of those internal lifting techniques is called the bandhas, the pelvic floor muscles. And if you think about, I often try, it's not something you can demonstrate in class. So I get people, I say, just imagine a parachute. So, a parachute, you jump out of a plane, you come in. Now, if you invert that parachute, that's the pelvic floor muscles. Okay, so that's the bottom part of your hips. And so what we do muscular activation wise is we just internally grip the middle of that parachute and pull it up from the inside. And that lifts that whole pelvic floor. Now, when you do that, it supports the spine and stabilizes the hips. So when you're doing back bends, for example, you don't want to be collapsing into your spine. So by maintaining that internal lift and that support, you give much more stability to the spine, and then you can lengthen out of it safely.
Right, fantastic. Because my background is physical education, and we did a lot of anatomy and, of course, biomechanics. So as you're saying, if the guru hasn't, at one level, intuitively, they're kind of studying biomechanics, but something as simple as you say, the alignment of the foot, the knee, as you say, the rotational torque placed on the knee. Just because the guru may not understand rotational torque doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Correct, because Batabi Joyce was taught a certain way by his teacher, and then he just replicated that and didn't think it through. And for us, if you get injured in a yoga practice, something's not going right.
Yeah,
that's a very clear indication that something's wrong. So you need to look at these injuries and you want to stop them. So you have to break it down mechanically and correct it. And when yoga is done anatomically correctly, there are no injuries.
Yeah.
And so it's fairly important to understand this. So we were super lucky that we did the anatomical alignment training first, and then took that mindset into these more energetic aspects. So when we went to Ashtanga, we picked up four new things. So the bandhas and the internal lifting, the drishti, or the eye focus. You're meant to be doing something with your eyes in a yoga practice. The Ujjayi breathing. So during a yoga practice, you're meant to maintain a steady, regulated breath. Whether you're doing strong poses or easy poses, back bends, forward bends, twist, or whatever, you're meant to maintain the regular breath. It's like keeping the revs even in your car when you're driving. And then the fourth thing that we learned is called vinyasa, or how to link from one yoga pose to the next. So rather than doing a yoga pose and then kind of just stopping, adjusting your hair and tucking in your t-shirt and then doing the next yoga pose, think about meditation. You need to keep that mindset constant. So learning how to link from one yoga pose to the next is learning how to turn yoga postures into moving meditation.
Boy, I'm going to just I'm making a note of that. Well, let's just follow in through that, because the other day we talked about, well, you said one, blessed with stiffness, cursed with flexibility. And then we talked about the lock and key method. So now let's take that further, because you introduced me. That was a concept that you taught me the other day, of literally meditating, focusing on that stiff part, whether it be the knee, the thigh, the hamstring. So I did that again. In fact, I did 2 classes. Normally I just do Monday night. I know you guys do it 6-7 days a week. This week I thought I'm going to do an extra class, and my swimming mate Bryce, that got me involved with Andrea's group, said, "Mate, how good was it doing 2 classes this week, not 1?" He said, "I just felt so much better." And of course we realized that the compounding effect of doing it. And I saw him the next morning. I went, "Wow, I feel so much." I posted a note to Andrea and said, "There's a sense of liberation. I feel much looser and lighter." So let's just talk about that further, the moving meditation, blessed with stiffness, and that meditation.
Yeah. Now, let me give you another image to work. I find it so much easier if I can give pictures to people.
Yes.
Rather than just trying to, it will, even explaining something, a fairly simple concept can take pages and pages if you write it out. But
yes,
what is that saying? A picture is worth 1,000 words.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So say you have a stiff body part. Who doesn't? Okay. Think of that stiff body part as a clump of earth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's hard, it's impacted, and think of your mind as water.
Oh, really?
Okay, so in a yoga practice, we don't want to go and meet that clump of earth with a hammer and smash it, because that's our body. That's an injury right there. What we want to do is we want to pour water on the solid earth and allow that water to seep in and dissolve it from the inside. Then there's no force, and that's the opposite of force. So we're using softness to overcome hardness. And it's the mind that has to be poured into the body in order for the body to release its tension.
Wow. I'm just making note of that. The mind poured into the body.
Yes. So you're directing, so you do the yoga poses. Remember I said the yoga is like an obstacle course.
Yeah.
So do the yoga pose of your choice. It will automatically highlight an area of resistance, tightness, or restriction. That is where you then aim the mind. Okay? You then direct the mind. Now, whether it's a key going into a lock or water that you're pouring onto a clump of earth, whatever image works for you, but you have to get the mind into that body part in order for that to connect to that body part, in order to release it. As long as those two are kept separate, the yogas it's just so frustrating, because you don't make any progress. You can go years and years and years, and you're looking around and the other people are making progress, and you're wondering why you are not. It's because you're not putting your mind into your body. And that's why in our style of yoga, we don't play music during class, because all the techniques, whether it's the yoga postures, whether it's the breathing techniques or the meditation, they're all designed to turn the mind inwards. And anything that pulls the mind outside of the body, so if you're listening to music, the mind is now externalizing, then you're taking the mind away from the work the whole point is to turn it inwards, and you're turning it outwards. Now, we play music before the class starts. We play music after the class starts, but not during. And we also don't burn incense, because you're in a yoga pose, you're focusing on your technique, and then you're suddenly aware of the aroma and smell of that incense. Again, your mind's gone out.
Yes, yes. Well, I actually found a quote there from Iyengar, or one of the yogis, literally saying, it's an inward out adventure, or you actually want to take
Yeah.
the mind inward. So let me just take a step further. So, with you, let's say you're doing yoga,
Yep.
and you find there's a stiffness somewhere in the pose. What is your mind doing at that point? You take me through the step of, are you saying something to yourself? Are you picturing something? What's going on?
So at the beginning of the practice, so the very first, so we use what are called sun salutations to warm the body up. Okay. Now, we recommend when people do home practice that they do 5 sun salutations. That's usually sufficient for the body to be warm, to get the blood flowing, get the muscles softened off, and getting the joints opened. In a classroom situation, we would often work with 3 because we're just limited with time.
Mm.
In an hour and a half class, you're really restricted on how much that you can actually cover. But the first thing that we do in an asana practice is get that breath expanded. Now, we call it Ujjayi, that means victorious, and it's a very simple breath. It's a 5-second inhalation, a 1-second pause, a 5-second exhalation, and a 1-second pause. So that's 12 seconds to that cycle. So 5 and 1 going in, 5 and 1 going out. That's 6 and 6 is 12. Now, when you do 5 breaths at 12 seconds each, that's 1 minute. So that's a system.
Mm.
Okay, so when we talk about holding the yoga pose for a minute, on average, that's what we do. That's exactly, it's not 59 seconds, it's not 64 seconds, it's exactly 60 seconds. Now, one of the benefits of that is that impacts your autonomic nervous system. So slow, regulated breathing shifts you over into the alpha phase of the mind wave patterns.
Yes.
That's that relaxed learning aspect where you can absorb the information. So straight away, we're already attuning the nervous system by adjusting the breathing. And that breath, that Ujjayi breath doesn't happen spontaneously. It's something I've had to train myself to do. So it's part of the internalizing technique. So already from the very first moment I started mountain pose, the very first breath, I initiate that Ujjayi breathing. And it usually takes me 5 rounds before I've got everything up and running, smooth and clean. Then when I move into the yoga pose, I pay attention to what I'm doing. Now, again, systemization here. So we teach that you always, regardless of the yoga pose, whether it's a handstand, a simple sitting pose, a back bend, whatever, the part of the body that is touching the yoga mat is called the foundation. And like a house, the foundation takes precedence. It's the most important part. Okay. Now, from that foundation, we then move the mind. So we grind the mind into the mat, anchor it there. And then we pull the mind through, or guide the mind through the rest of the body, seeking out areas of resistance. Now, once a body part is open, the mind just flows through it freely. And then, just goes into the next one. And it'll eventually hit something that's tight, or sometimes it'll show up as not being able to feel it at all. It'll be a dead body part.
A dead body part?
Just not dead in the sense of,
yeah, but just you can't feel it.
Can't feel it. It's not connected to your mind.
Okay.
And then you can't make changes to a part that's disconnected. You have to connect. And the basic essence of yoga is the body-mind connection. People talk about the body-mind as if they're 2 separate things. Yoga insight is that they're one and the same, but just the 2 faces of a coin, heads and tails. You can't have heads without having the tails. It's impossible.
Right, fantastic. As you said, putting that is a body, mind. No, the 2 clearly are connected functionally in every other way. So that being the case, now how do we actually work that communication channel?
Yeah. So we use the physical structure of the body then to pour the mind into, like pouring water into a vessel. And you want that water to flow out evenly until it completely fills up the interior of that vessel without any restriction. So, imagine there's some, you're in a vase, you're filling the vase up with water. Imagine there's some areas where the water doesn't go into. Say there's a clump of earth in there. And we want to dissolve that over time. Remember, we don't go in there with a hammer and smash it, because that's going to be very painful and cause an injury. But over time, with regular application of mind, we dissolve those restrictions. And that is the process of yoga. Okay, now the more we dissolve the restrictions, the more we have mind flowing through the body, the more we can then tune into the life force waves. Because remember, the body is receiver, and we want the whole thing functioning. We don't only want part, you don't only want part of a receiver to work.
Let's just talk about this. I've just made you know this life force waves.
Yeah. So just think about, we talked earlier last time about radio waves. You can't hear them. They're there all the time. You simply need a radio to receive the radio waves. The human body is the radio. It's a receiver. We're in a sea of the life force. We can't see it. It's there. If it wasn't there, we would just be like a puppet on a string and have the strings cut. We would just drop dead.
Yeah.
So once the body is disconnected from that life force, you're gone.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing in a yoga practice, and why it's a spiritual practice, is that we're tuning, adjusting the body to better receive, to more clearly receive the life force waves. And the life force waves, to me, is God.
Yes, you mentioned that last time. How can there be creation if there isn't a creator?
Okay, so we want to tune into that music of the spheres. We want to tune into that energy of the life force. And you contrast somebody, towards the end of their life where their vitality is minimal and they're, dragging themselves through their day. That's not an enviable position to be in. You think about the elderly, as their vitality reduces, their world shrinks. And you can obviously see that in older people. So we want to maintain the vitality so that we can participate in the world. Now, yoga, as I mentioned earlier, is not an escape from life. Yoga is meant to be a tool to enhance our capacity to engage in life more fully, more completely. So again, people tend to associate yoga with, the extreme yoga poses. And while they are a part and parcel of the learning aspect, they're not the yoga itself. So the yoga is nothing more than tuning the body to the life force. If you wanted to just simplify it to one word, I would say consciousness. So we're learning how to increase our capacity for consciousness.
Yeah. So, and as you're coming back to life force, having immersed myself more and more in this, and over the last few years, and I think it was Sadhguru and some of the others talking about, like, everything has a life force. And so I find myself when I'm swimming in the ocean in the morning, a few years ago, realizing, well, that fish swimming below me is a life force. Even the seaweed under me is a life force, let alone the waves in the water and the people around me. And so that became a moment of consciousness, that is, becoming more conscious or aware of this life force. And then beyond that, things like everyone is going through something in terms of their own river of life. We have illnesses, marriage breakups, marriage makeups, people do it, but everyone's going. There's this, I see people as like this series of streams all around me, but we come together in the ocean. But this consciousness of life force, and what you're doing, as you say, is then saying, I want to engage more fully with that life force, and therefore my yoga opening me up, tuning me in, and that role of coming back to mind body. The breath is that central almost corridor or conduit between the link.
Body and the breath, the body and the mind. So the breath allows us to link between the two.
Beautiful.
Is so important. I mean, it's crucial. So if you're practicing asana postures without controlling your breath, you're underutilizing the techniques.
Well, let's talk about this because, again, the difference between breathing through the nose and breathing through the mouth. Do you want to just talk about that?
Sure.
Because, I mean, again, Andrea has gone, no, you breathe through the nose. And then I read the book, that James Nestor guy's book on breath, and I just, wow, there's all this research there. So you talk to me about your insights and understanding and teachings around nasal breathing.
Lot behind the breath. Keep in mind now that there's a link between your breathing patterns and your emotional states. Someone who's highly agitated, emotionally upset, they're going to be having rapid, short, shallow breath. Someone who's calm and relaxed is going to have slow, steady, deep breathing. So you can.
Well, in NLP, they talk about your emotional state is linked to, one, what you're focusing on, past, present, future, positive, negative, and breathing and physiology. So to change state, change breathing, change what you're focusing on. And as you say, the breath alone is such a powerful tool, vehicle, switch, mechanism to change state. Yeah.
Well, I think most people have heard this saying, if you're angry, count to 10.
Yes, but it's like, what do you do when you're counting? But what you're saying is, if you did breathe in to the count of 5, hold for 1, and then breathe out to the count of 5, now you've got a different ball game going on.
So you're shifting your autonomic nervous system. So think about a car. So a car has an accelerator. So that's the sympathetic nervous system that revs everything up. You have a brake, which is the parasympathetic aspect of the autonomic nervous system. So the accelerator and the brake. So the sympathetic is the accelerator and the parasympathetic is the brake. All right. So we're learning how in a yoga practice to drive our car smoothly. And, beginners with learning how to drive, how in the days when there were still clutches, it took a while to learn how to smoothly engage the clutch and the accelerator at the same time. People would jerk, install
grate the gears. Yeah.
Still see that happening from time to time, but with automatics, that's largely gone now. But that's what we're learning to do in a yoga practice, is how to engage smoothly and to shift from emotional states that are undesirable to emotional states that are desirable. And that's an internal process. So no one can make you angry. It's an internal process. And if you're not happy being angry, then you have to go inside, change your breathing pattern, and then you'll automatically calm down. And in a position of calmness, you usually make better decisions. You don't tend to smash the wall or kick the car or, yell at the cat or something like that.
And that's a concept paradigm shift in itself of, you made me angry. No, you chose to be angry based on whatever I said or did.
Yes, and people get that intuitively, because no matter how foul of a mood that you wake up in the morning, if you found out that you just won a $10 million raffle, your mood's going to instantly change. So you've got the capacity to do it. Just people don't either understand or don't know the technique on how to do it. But they would, if they won $10 million, mood would change for the better.
Yes. And as you say, the interesting thing about the yoga class, a person can actually do the yoga class and these changes go on, and it's not even at the intellectual level, because they're just going, I feel better at the end of the class.
Yes.
Something's happened in that class that's made me feel lighter, better, less stressed. The universe is a better place as a result of that class. What the hell went on? So in your teachings, like, if people just come and do the class, where do they learn these kind of philosophies, the mindset, and some of the things you're teaching me? What's your way of teaching them or getting that information to them?
I thought you would never ask, Leigh. And now another system that we designed, every class that we teach without exception has 5 components. Okay, so the teacher teaching the Kanaf Yoga system doesn't get a choice. They have to teach these 5 components if they're following the system. So those components now, there's obviously the asana section, asana. There's the relaxation. There's the pranayama or the breath work. There's meditation, but there's also philosophy. So I've written out a 365-day philosophy course that all the Kanaf Yoga teachers receive. And I sent you one today. I don't know if you've had time to look at it.
No, I haven't looked at it yet, mate. Yeah.
I sent you one last week. I think you got that.
Okay, great. Yes. Oh, yes, yes. Oh, yeah. There's a very detailed email that I got. Yeah, that was great.
I send that out every week to the Kanaf Yoga teachers. And so that keeps them in line with the system. And it just reinforces the idea that they're following the system. Like a McDonald's franchise individual unit can't suddenly start introducing burritos and Italian food. You know, they have to follow that franchise manual to stay franchise.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do our students, we found out just through trial and error. So we used to teach just asa. That was the most popular. Then we tried teaching separate pranayama or breathwork classes, much less popular. Then we tried teaching just meditation classes, even less popular. So what we did is that we said, okay, the only way our students are going to learn this stuff is if we force them to learn it. And put it in the class where they can't get out of it. Now, we were very clever, and that each of those 5 components are not taught for the same length of time. So because the main focus is utilizing the physical body as the spiritual tool, 66%, this is average, 66% of the class is focused on teaching yoga postures. 12% of that class is on the relaxation. 12% is on the meditation. The pranayama, my apologies, pranayama. And then 5% is taught on the meditation and 5% taught on the philosophy. So 66, 12, 12, and 5 and 5 equals 100. So 100% of the class, regardless of whether it's an hour and 15, an hour and a half, 2 hours, or a 3-hour workshop, you've got the ratios to work with. It's all organized for you. And then those segments are taught along those lines to ensure that the students get a balanced, proper, progressive yoga education.
Nice. Just going to write that. Balanced, proper, progressive, which as you say is moving. Now, I'm asking you these questions for very selfish reasons, James, because my sales program, my CZ6 Color Zone sales system, I've, again, from a Piscean point of view, I've created it. There are bits and pieces, but I can see in terms of order, I've also created levels, which I call different color levels, but I haven't been as disciplined in terms of either both the balance component within the teachings, or even being disciplined about the progressive nature of it. You know, I've probably been, coming back to Nicki's point, too Mickey Mouse about it rather than curriculum syllabus based. So I'm being inspired by your thinking and your structure, because I know, of course, a curriculum based approach means you're getting one, you can scale it as distinct from, you know, what do I think people need to learn today. So I literally based on doing the workshop with Nicki, I came home and started going, right, well, if I was going to scale the different components of a sales system, what should be in the discovery level, what should be at beginner level, and then what should be at the advanced and master?
Excellent process to go through. We did exactly that. So Nicki and I took 3 days off. This is when we were living in far north Queensland in Cairns. Been to Cairns?
I have, yes. I've been there.
Well, just
years ago.
The tablelands, you know, it's
yes.
Behind it. It's elevated. So I think it's at 1,000 meters up there, and it's a really beautiful area. You know, they've got the high rainfall up there. They've got that waterfall circuit. It's quite expansive, a lot of farmland up there. But we rented a little cottage up there, took my books with me, And I took a whole pack of the little index cards, blank ones, just, with the lines on them.
Mm-hmm.
What we did is that we sat down over these 3 days and put down every single yoga pose individually onto a single card.
Mm.
Then, once we had all of those yoga poses out of the Iyengar system and out of the Ashtanga system, we then had a big stack. We then divided that stack up into 11 groups based on the characteristics, whether it was a forward bend, a back bend, a twist, an inversion, etc. So we broke those up into categories. And then when we had that stack of categories, we then went through and put them in order from the easiest to the most challenging.
Mm.
And then when we had those stacks from the easiest to the most challenging, we then had to spread that out over the belts, yellow belt, white belt, yellow belt, green belt. So we did our levels. We've got different names for them, but we then put them in order of progression. So which standing poses are the easiest? Which twists are the easiest? So we put those into the beginning level. And then the next most challenging ones we put into the next level, and so on, so that you weren't expected just to automatically do the advanced yoga poses. There was a system to teach you how to do it correctly, technique-wise, and safely, and allow the body to accommodate to these challenges, so you're not going to get injured, and learn the technique that goes with it. So we don't expect people to go from a beginner's class to an advanced class without taking them step by step, showing them each and every technique on how to do that, and allowing the body time to make those changes. Because if you don't, you're going to hurt somebody.
Exactly. I mean, let me just go, now that you've mentioned that, let me go to some of these incredible photographs that were sent through that are in, here we go. What level is that?
Well, now all that is, let's just break that down. So I was doing a headstand, and I basically just fall backwards. So I bend in the middle and I place my feet onto the floor behind me, okay? Then I lift up one leg at a time. And so that's called Ekapada Urdhva Dandasana. So that's one leg lifted up into the air.
Wow.
And then so that's my right side in the air. Then I'll bring that down.
Sorry, what happened there? Yeah, sorry. I got to go back and find that. Where the heck is it?
On my brain.
Oh, gee. No, I got to re-find it now. There it is, yes.
So that right leg, then I'll hold that for the 1 minute. That's those 5 rounds of the Ujjayi.
Right.
Then I'll bring up the other side and do the same, so that I'm balancing the 2 sides of the body. You know how some people will have a dominant side. Correct practice of yoga poses brings the body into balance. Now, when I finish that, I then walk my feet in a little closer to my head, and then I jump back up into the headstand.
Wow.
And so that's that full, and then from there you lower your feet down in front of your face.
Wow. I'll just find
So
what else are we. Oh, that's you. That's a section there of the meditation component of the class, is it?
So what I'm doing there, no, that's actually a yoga pose. So that's called the bound angle pose, so Baddha Konasana. So can you see my hands are binding?
Oh, yes, you've bound around your feet.
So I'm holding my feet together. Now what I'm doing is I'm pulling up through my spine, and at the same time I'm pulling laterally from my hip joints to my kneecaps.
Wow.
Okay, and then that makes space in my knee joint. So I do that on the inhalation. Remember, on the inhalation, we do our expansion. So from my hip joints out to my kneecaps, as I inhale, I'm pulling sideways. That's the expansion. That makes space in my knee, in my hip joint. Now on the exhalation, when the body naturally softens, I then pull down on my knees. So the knees are going closer to the floor. Can you see my hand here all right?
Yes.
So imagine that's the head of your femur. That's the thigh bone. That's the top of it there, okay? And this joint here, okay? So that's going in there. Now, for most people, that is tight. There's no movement. Well, they're sitting in that yoga pose we just had a look at. They pull their knee down because the joint hasn't opened. The knee just bounces up again. So they don't get any progress. So what we're learning to do is to relax that joint. Remember the water going on to the clot of earth?
Yeah.
And then with the expansion, I'm slowly, just bit by bit, I'm pulling that out. And then on the out breath, I'm relaxing. You can see now I've got space in there to move.
Mm.
Now, if I don't create that space, there's no potential for movement. There's only potential for injury.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm going to try and find one of the other poses.
Okay.
Well, here it is here. Yeah, man, oh man, let me bring this one up. Talking about clearly, this pose here is having, after a number of years, getting to the point where you've created that space to get to that point where you can literally put your legs around the back of your head.
Surprisingly, that's super comfortable once you've mastered that pose. That's called yoga nidrasana. Nidra means sleep. And in the cold Himalayas, the yogis used to sometimes sleep like that just to keep warm. Okay.
They used to sleep like that to keep warm.
You're wrapped up in your body warmth.
Well, you've reduced surface area to lose heat, I suppose.
Yeah, well, you're all wrapped up, but it's actually super comfortable. Now, what you do in that pose there, so you kind of lean back, and then you bring one leg behind your head, and then you bring the other one on, but then you wrap your arms around. You can see my arms are wrapped around my back here below my hips.
Yeah.
What I'm doing in that yoga pose, because that's a photo and it's static, you can't see it, but what I'm doing is on the inhalation, I'm lifting my chest and I'm pushing down through my arms. So I'm using those as a lever. So I'm lifting my chest as I inhale, and then I'm relaxing back as I exhale. And then I expand on the inhalation and I relax on the exhalation until the body softens. And it actually, believe it or not, that's a really comfortable pose.
Wow. Well, coming back to one of these other poses, James, let me just here.
Yep.
Tell people, what age were you at that photograph being taken?
Well, I'm 71 now, and that was, I moved here 6 years ago. So that's probably about 8 years ago.
Yeah, right. So in your early 60s, but even now, you're showing yourself, oh, you're in good nick. Okay, here we go, folks. Here he is, 71. All right.
So,
mate, what a guy. So let's just talk about that. Your daily, let's talk about your, what's that? What's wrong there?
I put on a little bit of weight just recently, and I've slapped myself around the face because I've been having some snacks at night. And Nicki laughs at me because she thinks it's nothing. But so I usually am around 73 kilos, and I'm at just under 74 at the moment. So it's just a matter of staying disciplined with your diet. But I'm 71, and I don't meet many other guys my age who aren't morbidly obese, basically.
No, I know, it's tragic. It's just tragic. And not only that, I mean, as you say, the physical, the shape you're in, but the functionality, as in walking, twisting, bending. So let's just talk about this then now. So your daily routine, let's talk about your day. I touched on it with Nicki, but let's stretch it out. The time you wake up and what you guys do, because now you're saying you don't just do yoga, there's a range of things. So let's break down the day.
I came to the conclusion after a long period of time that basically you need to do resistance training. So some type of weight training. And it can be your own body weight, like gymnastics. You also need cardio. You need to have the heart health. And then there has to be that component of flexibility, where the yoga comes. And the yoga is much more than just flexibility, but it does definitely adds in that component. So people need to have strength training or resistance training. And the more science is coming out that as we age, have you heard of sarcopenia?
No, I haven't heard of that, but I've heard people talk about the importance of, as we get older, we need to be doing resistance training in terms of muscle mass and so on.
Most people are aware of osteoporosis. So
yes.
Particularly women, because the hormonal differences, but also as well, as we age, we lose bone mass. And that's a very dangerous thing because you can have things breaking on you. Okay. But co-commitment with that, we also lose muscle mass. And that is also equally as dangerous because muscle is part of your metabolism. And when you lose your muscle, you basically lose your metabolism, and then you're stuck. You can't do anything. So resistance training, whether it's and again, as we get older, I just use light weights.
So you're using dumbbells, or what are you using? Or barbells, or what?
Well, I've got a hill just down the road from me here. That's a pretty steep hill, and I walk up and down that twice a week with 5.5 kilo dumbbells.
Ah,
Okay. Now, I do that 2 times a week, and I do 7 laps on that hill. It takes from my front door to when I come back to my front door, it takes about 50 minutes. So it's not long, but it's moderately intense. Now, and then another 2 times a week, I put on a 20 kilo sand vest, and I walk up and down that hill again 7 times. So 2 days per week, I walk up and down the hill with these little 5.5 kilo dumbbells. And then 2 times per week, I walk up and down that hill with a 20 kilo sand vest.
where the hell do you get a sand vest from? I've never even heard of a sand.
Sports.
Really?
Yeah, I've got it if you want me to show you.
Oh, no, I'm not putting it in my mind to do that, but just imagine swimming with a kilos. Oh my God, that would be incredible. No, not recommended.
That definitely would be fairly hard.
Yeah.
But I do that. So that's 4 times a week. So I'm doing that strength training with those things. I also have a chin-up bar on the door just here as well.
Uh-huh.
And twice a week, I do 65 pull-ups.
Oh my goodness. In sets of what?
5.
Oh, wow.
I do 5, have a little break, do 5, and I change my hand positions. With one of those door. Again, it's just right here. I can show you if you want.
Yeah, yeah.
I do the wide, and then I have my hands facing each other, and then I do the reverse like this.
Wow.
It's you think about most people, what do they do for their upper bodies?
Let's say 0. Yeah.
And again, I'm 71, so that so everything's functioning here.
Yeah, there's great tone there. There's no doubt about it. Yeah.
And it works. And I don't necessarily think that the practices I'm doing are going to make me live longer. There's no concrete evidence for that. But my goal is to at least live with more vitality. I don't want to spend the last 20 years of my life, in a wheelchair or in bed.
Yes, yes, yes. No doubt about it. Let's talk, okay, the meditation, and let's talk diet as well.
Yep. Meditation, you want to start there?
Let's start there, yeah.
Now, for us, what most people associate meditation with, they'll in their mind's eye see like a Buddha type figure sitting rock solid still, and that is a classical meditation position. But all meditation is sustained concentration. And let me just again, I like using these images. So a baby crawls, walks, and then runs. You can't really be born and get up and start sprinting. There's this process of learning. So for us in the yoga world, the yoga postures are the crawling. The breath work is the walking, and the meditation is the running. So it's
nice.
That
I love that. I love that image, mate. That's beautiful.
Okay, so they're all connected. They're all leading in the same direction, but they have to be done in that order in order to gain the skills and the techniques. Now, the mind is ephemeral. You can't get a hold of your mind. You can't reach in there and grasp something.
Yeah.
So the yogis came up with this clever system of using the body first, learning how to manipulate the body with the mind. So you're learning the skills of the technique by using the body first. Now, the breath is halfway between physical and ephemeral. Actually get a grasp on the breath, but it's very tenuous.
Yeah.
So the pranayama, the breath work, is that next stage of learning where you learn how to manipulate your breath, which manipulates your nervous system and your mental states. That's the walking part before you then even attempt meditation, because for someone to sit down without any training whatsoever, first of all, they're going to be super uncomfortable within a matter of seconds. And then learning how to grasp and manipulate something that is elusive as the wind, they haven't got a chance. We do the yoga postures, learning the techniques of directing the mind. Then we work with the more subtle substance of the breath. And then we use those techniques and take it into meditation.
Yeah. So coming back, meditation was run, breath work was walk. What was yoga then? The base level?
Asana practice is the crawling.
Oh, crawl. I love it. Yeah.
Baby
Wow.
walks, runs. That's the progression.
Wow. Wow. Boy, I'm immediately seeing a t-shirt. My brain thinks in t-shirts. I can see that is a t-shirt straight away. You know, it's a beautiful teaching t-shirt.
Yeah, you grab it. That's so the crawling is asana. The pranayama is the walking, and the running is the meditation.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. Absolutely beautiful. Let's talk diet. I mean, clearly you've got low percent body fat. So what are some of the things you absolutely don't do? Like I love it when I said to Andrea, when I say alcohol, Andrea, she goes, what you doing? I could just pushed every button in her body. So for you, what are some definite no's that you stopped years ago?
You mentioned alcohol. We don't drink, and we came to the conclusion. So if we want spiritual progress, that comes through mental clarity. Alcohol impedes mental clarity.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Look at it from a health. So that's a spiritual perspective. What top level ranked athlete, I mean, they might have a sip of wine or something in celebration, but they're not regular drinkers.
Yeah.
And I remember reading an article about an Australian pole vaulter. And he was pretty good. He was always came in second or third in the international competitions. And his coach told him he actually had to get more focused. But he said he didn't want to give up his friends. He didn't want to give up his partying. On the weekends, he would go out and get drunk and have a good time. But of course, that negatively impacted on his training.
Yeah.
Then he started, he went out and talked to the world champions in different fields, and none of them drank. And so he realized that if he wanted to function at the highest level, he had to let go of that alcohol. Now, I'm hearing more and more, Leigh, that remember not that long ago, a small amount of wine was supposed to be good for you. Versatile, some
red wine supposedly was good for you, high density lipoprotein, and
quite a bit more about it. Any amount of alcohol, male or female, is detrimental. Alcohol is poison. You're an adult. You're allowed to imbibe poison if you want. I choose not to. I'm not going to criticize anybody for doing that. But if you want optimal health and if you want spiritual progression, alcohol is impediment.
No, look, I know my own experience. In my journey with alcohol, the early days, our water polo was literally, you go to a party, it was a swim through. I can remember at Cronulla, at other times as well. I'm in a 13 beer shout. It's like how do I get out? And by the time you get to your fifth or sixth, you don't necessarily want to be out. But the next day you go, what the hell did we do last night? But now, particularly having started the Vedic meditation a year or so ago, and even over the weekend, one of the guys in the group, I could see his face was red. I call it a red wine drinker's face. And we talked about alcohol in the session. And even over the course of the weekend of the meditation, he said, you know what? I actually feel way less of a need to have the wine, the meditation, the calming down, bringing down to that sympathetic nervous system. There was less of a need. And even to the point where, having done regular meditation and even regular exercise, people going, that, as you say, whether you call it mental clarity, sense of well-being, I don't feel as well. And even today, Stewie, one of the guys I swim with, said, I went out to dinner last night. He said, I just didn't feel as good this morning swimming. Because when you are trying to perform at that elite level, the mental clarity, the physical clarity, it's just harder work. And particularly when you think in terms of, it is a toxin. You've just put a pile of toxin into your system and you're trying to perform it somewhere near an optimum level.
Well, the yogis now, they never into rules. This might be contradictory, but they were into guidance.
Yes.
So what they say is that there are no rules. You don't have to do this, but there are consequences of your behavior.
Yes.
And that is a much more powerful way to learn. And getting someone to focus on the consequences also teaches them self-responsibility.
Yes. Well, I think when you look at Sadhguru talking about karma, that in many ways, karma are your consequences, the consequences of your decision, the consequences of your actions. So there are no rules, but there are consequences. Oh, that's fantastic.
And the moment I'm going to give you a simple definition, my definition of a yogi. So a yogi is somebody who is consciously participating in their life to make it better. That's all it is.
Consciously participating in your life to make it better. Boy, well, that's why I'm calling it leading your best life. I'm trying to consciously participate in my own life to make it better. And say that again.
Not everyone does that.
No, that is true.
And substances like alcohol actually make you less conscious.
Yes.
They numb you to the reality of life. And some people like that and they look forward to it, but it takes you away from life.
Yes. Well, interestingly, I did a podcast with a mate of mine's son who had finally admitted he'd been an alcoholic since he was 15, and talking of karmic consequences, there was a car crash. Luckily no one was hurt, but that was the turning point. And he committed to becoming, he called it sobriety, and now he's a drug and alcohol counselor up in Byron Bay. And he is, I might call him, he's super disciplined. I mean, even to the point of no coffee, water. He's become he literally is a yogi now in terms of consciously participating in his own life to make it better. And his parents are just incredibly proud of this transformation. But he talked about in the podcast of, alcohol either numbs or dumbs.
Yes.
The numbing and dumbing effect, the anesthetizing effect.
And the yoga process, now if we're tuning into the life force waves, we don't want to numb ourselves to that.
No.
Going in the opposite direction.
Yes.
Yoga is not judgmental.
Yes.
As an adult, you can do whatever you want. But what's that saying? If you do the crime, you have to pay the time.
Do the crime, do the time. That's right. Do the crime, do the time. Exactly, mate. Fantastic. So coming back to other, let's say that's just alcohol. Let's talk. What other things are you doing to have such low % body fat in your diet?
Let me give you a little bit of history here, Leigh. Nicki and I have tried literally everything. We started off on what's called SAD. Now that could be the standard Australian diet or standard American diet, eating whatever. When you get in and start practicing yoga on a regular basis, your body starts becoming more sensitive. Naturally led us into becoming vegetarians. Really didn't even have to think about it. You just could feel the impact on food, and you just, if something makes you feel heavy and lethargic, you tend to stay away from it. You do it 2 or 3 times, you think, nope, it's not working well for me. That led us into becoming vegetarian. From vegetarian, the thinking process led us into veganism, where you're not using animal products. This all took over about 20 years. We went into raw foods, where we didn't do any cooking. And that was the reason, the logic behind moving to cans, because raw foods lowers your body temperature about 1 degree. And it doesn't sound like much, but you want to be in a warm climate when that happens. And, so we moved to cans specifically for that. Now, when you're into raw food, so that doesn't mean having a cup of tea, because tea is cooked. So we were just having 100% raw foods. Now, that led us into becoming fruitarians. I know it sounds radical.
Fruitarians.
Only eating fruit. Now, keep in mind that an avocado and a tomato and a pumpkin and a zucchini and a cucumber, those are all fruits. Anything with a seed in it. So, a mango is a fruit, lychee is a fruit, avocados are fruit. Cans, North Plains is just fantastic for that, because they have such a huge growing season. And, you get the Asian fruits, you get the African fruits, they have the sapotes and, like about 8 or 9 different types of bananas. So we did that for a long time. but I found that I actually became depleted, seriously depleted, where I'd get a scratch and I wouldn't heal. And my body,
As in, so iron, was it iron or protein or?
is basically what it was. And also, I became super thin, and I was protein deficient.
Mm.
And I'm obese now compared to what I was.
Yeah. So,
And
so what are you doing in regard to protein these days?
so this, we went through everything, and then we
Mm.
now have come out on the other side. And again, we don't judge anybody, because
Mm.
you have to make up your own mind what works best for you, and that's basically trial and error.
Mm.
And we tried all this stuff, and so now I do eat animal products, and I do that for the protein component of it. And I mainly focus on beef, and and then we have butter, and we have kefir. You know, kefir is like a yogurt type of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the protein component. We don't do much in the way of vegetables, but we do fruit. Like when we finish here, I'm going to go and have some mangoes. And I'm looking forward to that, Leigh. um, so this morning I had a blueberry smoothie with 2 scoops of whey protein concentrate. And in that, what did I put in that? I put in some stevia for sweetener, a cup of blueberries, 2 scoops of the protein powder, and a slosh of the kefir for the probiotic aspect of it. Delicious. And quite satisfying without with that protein. And then I haven't had anything since. I'm going to have some mangoes, and then I'll have my dessert for lunch is going to be 50 grams of walnuts and 50 grams of sultanas.
Fantastic.
And then tonight I'm going to be cooking some beef sausages. Do you know what sauerkraut is? The German.
Yes, the German love it. It's fantastic. Yeah.
So that's another probiotic. So tonight we're going to be having it's called the Texas chili sausages. Now they're slightly spicy, but they're beef, and I'm going to have that with sauerkraut and avocado, and what else we have that? Maybe some pickle.
Nice, nice,
So,
nice.
we tend to always try to have our meals finished by 7:30 p.m. No later, earlier if possible. Normally don't eat until about 11. So we automatically do that intermittent fasting, not so much as a discipline, but with the yoga practice, I really feel uncomfortable with food in my stomach.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Awful. And I have friends that can eat a full meal and do a full yoga practice and don't feel anything. I would end up vomiting. I've tried it. I do vomit. I've been in shoulder stand a number of times, and I've had something to eat, and I've just had to come out. I can't be upside down with food in my stomach because it all just runs out.
Yeah, whatever works for you, mate. That's fantastic. And so in the mornings when you are doing the yoga practice, how long are you spending on the mat?
Now these days I only do just over an hour.
Yeah, right. But that's an hour every morning. What time of day roughly is that you're doing that?
We usually get up about 6. I do the ablutions. Now I found through trial and error, I like to do my admin stuff, my thinking stuff first thing.
Before you do the yoga?
Yeah, I do, because I find that once my mind's engaged in the other things, I lose my mental clarity. Now, people perform better in the afternoons, and some people are night owls. But for me, first thing in the morning is when I'm the clearest, and I have those fresh ideas from that good night's sleep.
Yes. So you want to capture those.
If I've got to write an article like those weekly philosophy notes, I'll actually ask myself questions like, what topic do you want to write on? What do you think is going to help the teachers this week? And I'll do it before I go to sleep. And then it's a miracle, but in the morning, something's usually there that's in my head. So I processed it during the night. And if I tap into that first thing in the morning, then it's very easy to access it and write it out with clarity. Then once that's done, then I finish off my ablutions and get on my mat.
Beautiful. And what about the meditation? Where does the meditation component of your day come in?
If I'm going to do a classical meditation, I'll do it at the end of an asana practice. So I'd always do the asana first, followed by relaxation, then the pranayama breath work, and then the meditation. Because if you're going to sit for full meditation, you want to have the body open and light so that you can sit comfortably and have that life force flowing freely through your body. So you want to warm things up and you want to get that energy moving through first.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful, mate. There's so much great material there. Let me ask you this question. I can't remember if I asked you this before, but let me ask it again anyway. What is the mission of James Bryan? What is your mission?
I'm retired now.
Yeah. Well,
As you know, this is our second marriage with Nicki and I. I wanted kids. She had already had two. They were teens. And she said, well, I love the experience. And I think every woman should have that. I don't want to repeat it. So I had to choose to be with Nicki and no kids, to leave Nicki and go find another woman to have kids. That actually, believe it or not, took me 6 months to process that and come to a heartfelt conclusion that
that's a big decision, a massive decision.
Yeah. People laugh at male, you don't have the maternal instinct, but I really did want to have kids.
Yeah.
But what I realized is that, say for example, I left Nicki and then went and found another woman that would love me and wanted to get married and have a family. And what if she couldn't have kids? Then I would have to leave her and go, and then suddenly it just became silly. That I love Nicki and that she was my first priority and the children secondary. So that I was able to make that decision comfortably and be content in my heart. And again, like I told you, that my first wife, we did the counseling and came to our decisions with clarity. So once you have clarity, you don't tend to have the regrets.
Yes. So coming back to mission now, then, if I say mission, what does the next 3, 4, 5, 10 years look like for you in terms of the future? What's next?
We're mentoring some of the the more experienced Knopf yoga teachers.
Yes.
So we're in the process now of just sort of gently passing on the baton.
Yes, passing on the baton. Nice.
Nicki's 86. She's going well, but there's an end date to all this stuff.
Yep. No, absolutely, mate. She's going very well. Teaching with incredible precision. That I did that workshop in Perth only a few weeks ago. Her eye for detail, her precision, let alone, of course, her capacity to still touch her toe, way more than touch her toes. Do all the poses and so on.
She has a lot to give, and people should tap into that while there's still the opportunity.
Yeah.
But like Nicki, having that experience of having the children and not needing it to repeat it. I've done the yoga thing now.
Yes.
And I don't need to repeat it.
No.
I feel happy with what we've created. I'm still enthusiastic about transferring the knowledge across, but I feel like I've kind of done my job in that aspect.
Well, this podcast is going to go a long way, again, to sharing and capturing some of the fantastic energy, knowledge, enthusiasm you guys have. I particularly like, one of the things that we have in common, if I come back to the website, where I love the fact that you guys talk about, where is it? I'm going to look for the three E's. Tell me what those 3 E's are again, as I'm looking for this. The three E's on your website there. Where is it? Energize, elevate, evolve.
So again, from a business viewpoint, distilling the concepts down to easy, manageable, bite-sized pieces so that the public can grasp it and easily understand what we're attempting to achieve. So the idea is energize the body, elevate it so that we can evolve the spirit.
Yes. Evolve the spirit. So talking of that, one of the questions I'd like to ask as we move to the home straight, if you were able to talk to the young James Bryan, say the 13 or 15-year-old James Bryan, what would be 2 or 3 tips that you would pass on to the young James Bryan, to say the 13-year-old you?
Yeah, boy, those were tough years for me. Looking back, when I was 15 was just absolutely miserable. It's the worst year of my life. I did have an epiphany at the age of 15, that my personal happiness, because I was miserable, my personal happiness was going to depend on me and what I did. And that slapped me in the face really hard. Now, when you're a young kid like that and you're still at home, you don't have a lot of options. You just have to suck it up and get through it the best you can. And it's not until you're able to leave home that you're able to implement life choices. And then when you start implementing the choices, and you start growing as an individual, you get to try different things out. Now, I might walk past a clothing shop and see a mannequin in the window displaying a pair of men's trousers. They might look fantastic, but I don't know if those trousers are going to fit until I actually go and try them on. They might be too long, they might be too short, the cut may not be right. So life is a bit like that. You actually have to try things out in order to find out if it's going to fit you or not. If you an inclination to be able to go with that particular thought. There's lots of things. I remember when I was young, I used to do a lot of reading as escapism, and there was some kids series, a young adult adventure series where these young boys would go off on these sailing ships. And I thought, wow, fantastic escape. Until I actually went on a sailing ship, I hated it. A double earth sign Virgo.
Yes.
The moment I got a few meters away from the land, I'm going, oh God, what the hell have I done? Back down terra firma.
Yeah.
My advice to my young self was just relax. Opportunities coming. Make the best choices you can. Don't be stupid. I was always very conscious too of taking the opportunity to learn. When you're at school, I can remember a debate we had in biology. We were learning about mosquitoes. That was one of the subjects, and some of the students were complaining, what the hell do we need to learn about mosquitoes for? And I'm thinking, well, it's kind of interesting, but besides that, just learning things is using the process and the skill of learning. And I was one of those students that always wanted to sit in the front of the class. And, everybody else wanted to be in the back where they could goof off. I kind of had this idea that, I'm not sure it was particularly healthy, but I always had the idea that if I missed 1 or 2 days, I might miss something that was crucial. And I didn't want to do that. So I was always very enthusiastic about learning. I understood the importance of learning. And so was actively engaged in doing that. And so what I'd say to my young self is look after your health, focus on learning, watch for opportunities and go for it. And those opportunities that you take may not always pan out. Look how many billionaires have crashed and burned multiple times before they've hit the mother lode. It's in that trying of life that you're trying on those pair of pants to see whether they fit or not. And one day you're going to find the perfect fit and you're going to be able to run with them.
Yeah. Beautiful, mate. Beautiful. James, there's been so much we've covered today. I'm just looking at my notes, the syllabus approach, the moving meditation, that whole, mind, body, breath connection in between, and tuning that musical instrument where we're talking about the anatomical alignment, the metaphor of the water pouring in, the mind being poured in onto the earth. So we're, as you say, yoga being way more than just the physical. And as you say, if you start working in cycles of 5 breaths in, hold for 1, 5 out, and you're focusing on that as you're doing the yoga, you don't have a lot of time to be thinking of other things. It does become a meditation. And this 365-day philosophy course, the structure in terms of 66% asana, the 12-12, 5-5, but there's so much great material. Folks, do check out Noff Yoga and James. I'll put the contact on. It's the website's there. The resistance training, the cardio, the dumbbells, the 20 kilo. I don't know if I'm going to do that, James. I'll just keep swimming. Well, in fact, people do swim with like a little parachute behind them, and that creates even more resistance. That's another way of doing it. And I love crawling is the yoga, the asana, walking is the breath work, and the running is the meditation.
Yep.
There are no rules. There are only consequences, mate. There's so much that we've covered there. Is there anything you'd like to say or cover before we wrap up?
Yeah, I would like to just emphasize that your happiness depends on you.
Mm.
If you're unhappy in any aspect of your life, in the last conversation, we looked at the three main aspects of your finances, your relationships, and your health. So it basically just boils down to those three things.
Yeah.
And if your life isn't going well for you, it'll fall into one or all of those categories. And that is what you need to focus on. Life is not complex. It's basically staring you right in the face. And then, like any problem, you break it down into manageable bite-sized pieces and address that. And then there'll be the next thing behind that. And then you just get through it step by step. So any journey, no matter how long, starts with that first step. And it's in taking that first step that you start the process.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's part of the purpose of the Leading Your Best Life podcast, is to give people examples and models and scaffolds of how to take that first step. And there is the Confucius, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, and someone else had interpreted it as the journey of 1,000 miles begins at your feet. You actually have to. It's your feet, as you said.
That's, again, I talked last week also about what I love about yoga. Zero effort equals zero benefits.
Yeah.
No, you actually have to take self-responsibility in life in order to progress spiritually. As long as you have a victim mindset, as long as you're blaming other people, situations, your parents, or something happened 250 years ago, like slavery, as long as you're still blaming somebody else or some other situation, you cannot grow spiritually, and you're going to shoot yourself in the kneecap. And it's a painful way to live.
Yeah, exactly. James, thank you so much for your time, mate. Let's stay in touch. And I think in the new year, we can do another one of these, because I think there's so much. You're a bottomless pit there.
Unfortunately, I am but there's a lot more to this. This would be surprising. Yoga is fairly expansive. If your readers respond and say they'd like to hear a bit more, I'm your man.
Exactly, mate. Let's do that, because I mean, again, selfishly, why do I do this? I want to be learning and meeting wonderful people and soaking it up as well. I'm a sponge at the age of 67. So go, mate. We're kindred spirits. Thank you so much for your time, James, and I'll see you again very shortly.
My pleasure. Great speaking with you, Leigh.
As we say, namaste, my friend. Namaste. Thank you.
Ciao.